Is it worth gambling our future draft capital on a prospect with serious off-field baggage? The news just dropped that a talented yet controversial college quarterback is entering the supplemental draft, and suddenly the Colts are being linked to his name. With our depth chart situation and the need to protect our future assets, this puts the front office in an incredibly difficult position. Should we really sacrifice more picks after the recent blockbuster trades? Let's break down the risks and the potential reward of this move. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me your thoughts in the comments below. The official entry of college quarterback prospect Brendan Sorsby into the NFL supplemental draft has officially turned heads across the league, specifically in Indianapolis. Following his transfer from Cincinnati to the Texas Tech Red Raiders for the 2026 season, Sorsby's collegiate path took a sharp turn. After admitting to gambling activities during his tenure with the Indiana Hoosiers from 2022 to 2023, the situation necessitated a hard evaluation by the Texas Tech program. With the NFL supplemental draft deadline looming on June 22nd, Brendan Sorsby and the Red Raiders reached the determination that avoiding a fifth college season was the most viable path forward, shifting his focus entirely to securing a spot on an NFL roster. This development immediately ignited speculation regarding the Indianapolis Colts, as their quarterback room remains a topic of significant interest. While Brendan Sorsby carries the weight of past gambling issues, his collegiate statistical profile cannot be ignored. Over the course of 35 games, including 24 at Cincinnati and 10 at Indiana, he accumulated 7,208 passing yards and 1,295 rushing yards. His efficiency was highlighted by 60 passing touchdowns and 22 rushing scores against 18 interceptions. For a team like the Indianapolis Colts, looking for talent that possesses the raw physical tools for the professional level, the ability to capitalize on such a unique entry mechanism is a conversation they must have. Whether the organization decides to pull the trigger on a bid for Brendan Sorsby remains to be seen, but the urgency is palpable as the deadline approaches. It is a decision that forces the franchise to weigh the potential reward of his arm talent against the complications of his history and the cost of draft capital. For the faithful who scream for the shoe, the wait for clarity is certainly intensifying. When examining why this move matters for the Indianapolis Colts, the focus shifts toward the current structure of the quarterback depth chart behind Daniel Jones. The room currently features Anthony Richardson Sr., who is actively seeking a trade partner alongside Riley Leonard, who has solidified his role as a capable backup. Additionally, Easton Stick occupies a spot as an emergency option. While Stick possesses starting experience and shares a history with head coach Shane Steichen from their time with the Los Angeles Chargers, the potential ceiling for Brendan Sorsby is viewed by many as significantly higher. The argument for Indianapolis lies in the possibility that Steichen could mold Brendan Sorsby into a serviceable, if not dynamic, asset under center. However, the internal math for Indianapolis is complicated by the nature of the supplemental draft process. If the team were to successfully win a bid for the quarterback, they would be required to forfeit a 2027 draft pick in the exact round they used to select him. This represents a substantial hurdle for the front office, especially considering that the Colts no longer possess a 2027 first-round pick following the trade for cornerback Sauce Gardner. The question becomes whether the team is willing to sacrifice future draft flexibility for a player who, realistically, might only serve as a third or fourth option in the rotation. Even if the expected trade of Anthony Richardson Sr. creates a vacant roster spot, the organization must decide if the gamble on Brendan Sorsby is worth the loss of future assets. It is a balancing act between optimizing the immediate depth of the roster and maintaining long-term sustainability through the draft. The decision rests on whether his specific skill set fits the team's requirements. Brendan Sorsby is clearly a prospect defined by both his undeniable physical traits and his baggage. His arm talent is frequently highlighted in scouting circles as being of the caliber required for the NFL level, which makes him an intriguing piece for any team needing depth. However, the Indianapolis Colts are in a delicate spot. Because the franchise already faces a deficit in draft capital for 2027, every pick is treated with extreme caution. The possibility that Brendan Sorsby could contribute is balanced against the reality that the team cannot easily afford to part with future selections. If Chris Ballard and the scouting staff view the tape and identify a truly special trait that elevates Brendan Sorsby above his peers, they might feel emboldened to place a high bid. Yet, on paper, the transaction appears difficult to justify. He was originally slated to play his 5th year in college before the revelation of his betting history derailed that trajectory, adding a layer of uncertainty to his transition. While the Indianapolis Colts have been identified as a potential suitor, the consensus suggests that the team will not be making an overly aggressive push. The franchise needs to retain as many assets as possible for 2027, a requirement that conflicts with the high-stakes nature of the supplemental draft. Managing the roster while keeping an eye on the long-term health of the team is the primary objective here. As the clock ticks toward the June 22nd deadline, the front office is likely running intense simulations to determine if the risk of losing another pick is outweighed by the potential upside of adding a prospect with the arm strength and athleticism that Brendan Sorsby brings to the table every single snap. The complexity of the situation involving Brendan Sorsby continues to dominate the discourse surrounding the Indianapolis Colts. It is important to note that the interest in him is strictly focused on his potential utility as a depth piece, rather than an immediate answer to a starting vacancy. Because Daniel Jones remains the established leader of the offense, the search for a supplemental draft acquisition is entirely about padding the roster. However, the reality of the NFL is that every selection has a price tag, and for the Indianapolis Colts, that price is an immediate deduction from their 2027 draft stock. This is the central tension of the scenario. Can the team afford to take a player who was effectively forced out of his final collegiate season due to betting issues? That is a question that requires a thorough review of his character and his technical traits. Brendan Sorsby has demonstrated the ability to be a productive player, as shown by his 82 total touchdowns across his time with Cincinnati and Indiana. His capacity to scramble and extend plays provides a different dimension than the current backup options, which is likely why he remains a name of interest. Yet, the strategy seems to be one of extreme caution. The front office is undoubtedly aware that losing more picks limits their ability to build through the draft in the coming years. This is why the prospect of an aggressive bid remains unlikely, regardless of the noise surrounding the team. The organization is tasked with the difficult job of identifying whether the talent on the field outweighs the risk of his past, and whether that risk matches the cost of a future pick. It is a high-pressure calculation that defines the current front office approach. As the June 22nd deadline approaches, all eyes remain on the Indianapolis Colts to see if they will submit a formal bid for Brendan Sorsby. The narrative of his arrival into the NFL through the supplemental draft is a rare one, and it provides a unique opportunity for teams to secure a quarterback without the weight of a traditional April draft. However, for the Colts, this is not just about acquiring talent. It is about protecting the future of the franchise. The decision-making process will be defined by the scouting department's assessment of Brendan Sorsby's arm strength, his decision-making under pressure, and how he fits within the schematic vision of Shane Steichen. There is no doubt that his athletic profile is attractive, but the consequences of making the wrong move are amplified by the team's current draft situation. If they proceed with a bid, it must be because they have absolute conviction in his development. If they choose to stay away, it will be a testament to their desire to preserve every possible resource for 2027. We will see how this plays out in the coming days as the final decisions are made and the supplemental draft results are tabulated. Whether or not Brendan Sorsby ends up wearing the colors of Indianapolis, the strategy behind the decision will be analyzed thoroughly. For now, the team continues to focus on its current roster, ensuring that they are prepared regardless of whether a new quarterback enters the fold. The path forward for the Indianapolis Colts is one of careful calculation, and the case of Brendan Sorsby serves as the latest reminder of how quickly priorities can shift in the NFL. Every pick counts, and for this franchise, the future is clearly the priority.